The Voronezh UFO Incident of 1989 is another notable event in the history of UFO sightings and alleged extraterrestrial encounters. This incident took place in Voronezh, a city in southwestern Russia, and gained significant attention due to the nature of the sightings and the involvement of several children as primary witnesses. The event occurred in September and October 1989 in a park in Voronezh. The primary witnesses were a group of children along with some reports from adults. The children's ages and the public setting of the sightings added an intriguing element to the story. Witnesses described seeing a large red ball or disc-like object that landed in the park. Some reported seeing the object on multiple occasions. Along with the UFO, witnesses claimed to see three entities, described as being very tall, about 3 meters in height, and wearing silver suits. One of the beings was reported to have 3 eyes. There were also reports of a small robot-like creature associated with the beings. According to accounts, the beings and the robot came out of the UFO and roamed around the park. There were claims of interactions between the beings and the environment, including an incident where a being supposedly made a boy vanish temporarily. The UFO and its occupants were reported to have left traces on the ground and physical effects on the witnesses and environment. The incident was reported in the Soviet media, which was unusual at the time as such topics were typically censored or not taken seriously by state-controlled media. Western media also picked up the story, and it became a sensation, partly due to the political climate of the time, the tail end of the Cold War and the beginning of the Glasnost period in the Soviet Union. Despite investigations, no conclusive evidence was provided to fully explain the sightings. Skeptics have suggested that the sightings were a result of mass hysteria, especially considering the involvement of children as the primary witnesses. Other explanations include misidentification of natural or man-made objects or a hoax. The incident remains one of the most well-publicized UFO events in Soviet history and continues to be a topic of interest in ufology. The Travis Walton abduction is one of the most famous and controversial alleged alien abduction cases. This incident occurred in 1975 near Snowflake, Arizona, USA. Travis Walton was a logger who disappeared for 5 days, leading to a complex and highly publicized series of events. On November 5, 1975, Travis Walton was working with a logging crew in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest. The crew members included Mike Rogers, who was the crew boss and Walton's best friend, along with several other loggers. As they were driving home after work, the crew saw a bright light and discovered a saucer-shaped object hovering in the forest. Walton got out of the truck and approached the object, at which point he was allegedly struck by a beam of light from the craft and thrown to the ground. The other crew members, frightened, drove away, leaving Walton behind. When the crew returned to the site with law enforcement, Walton was gone. This led to a large-scale manhunt involving local authorities and volunteers. Walton reappeared 5 days later, claiming he had been abducted by aliens. His disappearance and the subsequent search attracted significant media attention. Walton described waking up in a room resembling a hospital surrounded by 3 short, bald creatures. He claimed he fought with them until a human wearing a helmet led Walton to another room, where he lost consciousness. When he awoke, he was outside the gas station in Heber, Arizona, with the flying saucer departing above him. He believed only a few hours had passed, but later realized he had been missing for 5 days. The case was investigated by law enforcement, UFO researchers, and skeptics. Walton and the logging crew passed polygraph tests regarding the sighting of the UFO and Walton's disappearance. However, there have been questions about the validity and interpretation of these tests. Skeptics have suggested the incident was a hoax, possibly for financial gain, but no conclusive evidence has been provided to support this claim. The Travis Walton abduction case became one of the best-known alleged alien abduction stories and was the subject of the book The Walton Experience, written by Travis Walton and a 1993 movie, Fire in the Sky. The case continues to be a topic of debate, with Walton himself often appearing at UFO conventions and events. The Travis Walton case stands out due to the number of witnesses, the polygraph tests, and Walton's detailed account of his experience. However, like many such cases, it remains controversial and unexplained, with divided opinions on its authenticity. The event took place on the night of August 21, 1955, at a farmhouse belonging to the Sutton family. There were 11 witnesses, including family members and friends. Their ages and backgrounds varied, adding to the credibility of their collective testimony. The witnesses reported seeing unexplained lights in the sky and encountering small humanoid creatures around their farmhouse. The creatures were described as around 3 feet tall with oversized heads, large glowing eyes, and pointed ears. They had long arms and hands with talons. Their movements were described as floating or gliding above the ground. The witnesses also reported seeing a strange glowing craft of an undefined shape in the nearby woods earlier in the evening. The encounter lasted several hours, with the creatures repeatedly appearing and being driven off. The family was reportedly terrorized by these beings and used firearms to defend themselves, claiming that the creatures were impervious to bullets. After the event, the family went to the local police station, leading to an investigation by local law enforcement and military police from nearby Fort Campbell. The police and military personnel found no evidence of the creatures but noted signs of distress among the witnesses and evidence of gunfire at the farmhouse. Skeptics have suggested that the sighting was a misidentification of great horned owls, which are native to the area, coupled with a heightened state of panic. Despite several investigations, no conclusive evidence has been presented to fully explain the event. The Kelly-Hopkinsville Encounter received significant media attention and has been a subject of fascination in popular culture. It has inspired various books, documentaries, and episodes and television series focused on paranormal phenomena. The case is often cited in discussions about extraterrestrial life and encounters with unknown creatures, contributing to its status as a classic case in ufology. Like the Ariel school encounter, the Kelly-Hopkinsville case remains unexplained and is a topic of debate. While some view it as one of the most compelling and well-documented cases of extraterrestrial contact, others believe it was a combination of misidentification and mass hysteria. The Allagash Abductions is another intriguing case in ufology involving an alleged alien abduction. This incident took place in 1976 in the Allagash Wilderness of Maine, USA. The event involved 4 men, twin brothers Jack and Jim Weiner, along with their friends Chuck Rack and Charlie Foltz, who were on a camping and fishing trip in the Allagash Wilderness. On the night of the incident, they noticed a strange bright light in the sky which seemed to follow them. The men claimed that a bright light enveloped them while they were fishing on the lake at night. This was the last thing they remembered before finding themselves back at their campsite. Initially, they thought little of the missing time, but they later reported experiencing nightmares and unexplained anxiety. Several years after the incident, the men underwent hypnosis, which is when they first revealed their stories of abduction. Under hypnosis, they described being examined by humanoid beings in a spacecraft. These beings were described as typical gray aliens, short with large heads and big black eyes. Their accounts were remarkably similar, despite being hypnotized separately, adding a layer of intrigue to their story. The Allagash Abductions received attention from UFO researchers and were subject to various investigations. Some researchers found the men's story credible, noting the consistency in their accounts under hypnosis. While the consistency of the men's accounts under hypnosis is compelling to some, the use of hypnosis itself is a point of contention. Critics argue that hypnosis can lead to the creation of false memories, especially in suggestible individuals, and that it is not a reliable method for uncovering factual events. Additionally, skeptics point out that without physical evidence or external corroboration, the accounts remain anecdotal and are difficult to verify. The Allagash abductions contributed to the wider cultural narrative about alien encounters, especially in the context of abductions and lost time phenomena. Like many cases in ufology, the Allagash abductions are surrounded by debate. The Ariel School encounter in 1994 took place at the Ariel School, a primary school in Ruwa, Zimbabwe. This event is notable for being one of the most well-documented instances of alleged mass UFO sightings and encounters, particularly involving a large group of schoolchildren. Over 60 schoolchildren, along with some staff members, witnessed the event. The children were unsupervised on the school playground at the time of the sighting. The children's accounts were remarkably consistent, despite their different ages and backgrounds. They described the event in detail both verbally and through drawings. The craft was described as a silver or shiny object. Some children reported that it landed, others that it hovered above the ground. The beings were described as small, approximately 1 meter in height, with slender bodies, large heads, and big black almond-shaped eyes. They were said to wear tight, shiny black clothing. Some children reported that the beings moved around the craft and the area around it, while others described a form of communication or telepathic messages from these beings. The children exhibited genuine fear and confusion during and after the incident. Several reported feeling a sense of doom or receiving messages about environmental degradation and the misuse of technology. Interviews conducted shortly after the incident and years later showed that many of the children were still affected by the experience. Dr. John Mack, a psychiatrist from Harvard University, conducted extensive interviews with the children and staff. He concluded that the children were not fabricating their stories. Mack's investigation is notable for its depth. He focused on the psychological aspects and the potential implications of such an encounter. The incident was also investigated by other UFO researchers and journalists, but no definitive explanation was reached. The encounter received local and, later, international media attention. It has been featured in various documentaries and television programs, often cited as one of the most compelling cases of potential extraterrestrial contact. The incident continues to be a topic of interest in ufology circles and has been discussed in books, documentaries, and conferences. Despite the detailed accounts and investigations, the Ariel School encounter remains unexplained. Skeptics suggest psychological phenomena like mass hysteria or shared illusions, while believers in extraterrestrial life view it as a significant event. The lack of physical evidence and the reliance on children's testimonies make it a challenging case to analyze conclusively.